Hello and welcome to the class. My name's Daniel, and today we're going to be looking at the marking criteria for writing task 2. If you have any questions after the class, you can go to the top of the screen and click on the chat icon to send us a message. This is the first of 2 classes and will last just over 20 minutes. First, we're going to talk about task achievement, and then we're going to talk about coherence and cohesion. So by the end of the class, you should be familiar with these 2 concepts and see how they affect your writing marks. During the class, you'll have to answer questions. These will appear below the video, and I'll tell you when to answer them, and I'll give you 10 to 15 seconds for each one. So let's look at what the marking criteria is. Well, the marking criteria is 4 areas that you're marked on for your writing. Those 4 areas are as follows. We have task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. We're going to look at the first 2 in this class. And they're used, for each one you get a mark of 0 to 9. So 0 is the lowest and 9 is the highest. So you get 4 different marks, but then the examiner takes them, puts them together and gives you your average. So let's start with task achievement. We're going to look at what task achievement is. Now, generally, task achievement gives you marks on how well you achieve the task or how well you answer the question. We're going to see now what the examiner sees, the marking criteria. So this is what the examiner sees, and you can see that it goes from band 6 to band 9. Actually, it starts at 0, but we're just going to look at the top 4 bands. Now let's look at some of the most important parts of it here. Well, the first thing that we need to look at is here. It talks about addressing all parts of the task. Addresses all parts of the task. And you can see this is in here, in all of them. Now, the task will ask you to do a few different things. And if you miss some of those things, you will lose marks. If you talk about all of them, you'll get higher marks. So here, the difference you can see, 9 means it says you fully address everything. So you cover all of those different parts. Whereas 6, you can see that it says some parts may be more fully covered than others. So maybe you talk a lot about one part of the task, but you just talk a little bit about the other parts. So it's important that you address everything. Another thing that it talks about is your position here, or response. These have basically the same meaning. Position, position, and position. Your position is like could be your opinion or the point of view that you're writing from. Here it says in 9, it says it's fully developed. So you state your position and you develop it with examples and explanations. Whereas here it says you present a relevant position, but the conclusions may be unclear or repetitive. So that's when you have a position, you're not developing it fully, you're just repeating the same things again and again. That comes to this next thing, is we need to fully extend and support our ideas. Absolutely vital that when we're presenting an idea, we're giving examples and we're giving evidence to support why we think that. If you don't do that, you're going to lose marks for task achievement. Another thing that it talks about here is sometimes people overgeneralize. Where you'll say something is true for everyone. You won't be specific about it. And you want to try to avoid that as well. So let's summarize these ideas. So the key parts are we need to address the different parts of the task and nothing extra. That's important as well. So you don't want to add any extra things in. If it's about technology, you don't want to start talking about health, of course, because that's completely different. So you just want to focus on what the task asks you to. You need to take a position in the essay. That could be from your opinion that you agree with it, or maybe you disagree with it, or it could be the position that you're looking at the advantages and the disadvantages. That could be the position in the essay. Present ideas with supporting evidence. So as I mentioned before, you need to show evidence and examples for all of your ideas. And it didn't mention this in the criteria, but you have to write 250 words. Now, if you write less than this, that probably means that you've missed something. And if you miss something, you're not going to get high marks for task achievement. So the 250 word limit is there for a reason. So let's have a little bit of practice. Well, we've got one task here. We can see it's underlined. It says, technology has been said to benefit teenagers greatly, but there are those that argue it is detrimental to their lives. So the key words have been underlined here. So the general topic is technology, but more specifically, it's about technology and teenagers. So it's not about technology for everyone, it's about technology and teenagers and the benefits of technology. But some people say, but there are those that argue it is detrimental. If we say it's detrimental, it means it has a negative effect to their lives. So we're talking about the benefits and the negative effects on teenagers' lives that technology has. And here it says discuss both sides. So that would be one side of the argument and the other side, and then give your opinion. So this is what a task 2 task looks like. Now, what I'd like you to do is look at the question below the video and answer which of these things could you include in your essay. So we've got number 1, a paragraph on how technology has saved time for parents. 2, a paragraph on how high school students have better access to information. 3, a paragraph about cyberbullying. 4, just the benefits to teenagers. 5, a paragraph on how children don't play outside with friends anymore. 6, a paragraph on how everyone can stay in touch more easily. And 7, a sentence saying that you believe that overall teenagers' lives have been improved by technology. I'll give you 10 to 15 seconds to choose the correct options. So let's look at each one in turn. Well, could we include this first one, a paragraph on how technology has saved time for parents? No, you can't include that because this is about parents, and we have to remember that we're writing about teenagers, so the advantages for teenagers. So you wouldn't want to include that. If you did include that, you would lose marks for your task achievement because you're including things that you don't need, that the task doesn't ask you to include. This second one, it says a paragraph on how school students have better access to information. Well, high school students are teenagers and have better access to information. That is a benefit to teenagers. So yes, we could include that, definitely. A paragraph about cyberbullying. Maybe, probably we could include it. It's generally cyberbullying happens between teenagers. So it is a negative thing that happens to teenagers. So yes, I think we could include that. Just the benefits to teenagers. Well, just the benefits. No, we can't include just the benefits because it says discuss both sides. You want to include the benefits and the negatives, the disadvantages as well. And number 5, A paragraph on how children don't play outside with friends anymore. Well, this again, similar to the first one, focusing on children. Teenagers is not the same as children, so that would be outside of this task. We wouldn't want to include that. A paragraph on how everyone can stay in touch. It's a bit too general. It's talking about everyone. If you were speaking specifically about how teenagers could stay in touch, then yes, maybe you could include that. But when you're talking about everyone, that's overgeneralizing, which we mentioned before. And if you do that, you're going to lose marks. A sentence saying that you believe that overall lives have been improved by technology, well, you believe this, and yes, it says to give your opinion. It's about teenagers, so yes, you could include that. If it asks for your opinion, you can give your opinion. So now what I'd like you to do is look at these two paragraphs. These are example paragraphs from our writing task 2. And I'd like you to say which of the paragraphs is best. If you look at the question below the video and choose the correct option. So number 1 says, one big issue facing teenagers is cyberbullying. All teenagers are now in danger of being bullied online through social media. It is easy to go onto Instagram or Facebook and receive nasty messages from people that can make you feel depressed. And number 2 says, one downside of technology is the rise of cyberbullying among adolescents, a form of bullying conducted on social media platforms. This type of bullying is particularly common amongst teenagers who spend a great deal of their time communicating via the internet. A large number of students report this type of bullying, which they say has a huge negative impact on their self-esteem. So I'll give you 10 to 15 seconds to choose the correct option. Now, of these two, I would say the second one is the better option. They're both okay, but the second one's a bit more specific and supports it with more ideas. The first one overgeneralizes a little bit. It says all teenagers. You probably want to avoid words like all, everyone. Instead, you want to use words more like the majority, most, some, because if you say all, that's just too general. So we want to try and avoid that. That's one thing. We can also say that we're talking about the rise of cyberbullying amongst adolescents. And then it supports this by referring to communicating via the internet being common amongst teenagers, and then how a large number of students report that it has a negative impact on their self-esteem. So it's directly connected to the task, and it's supporting it with evidence. Let's now move on to coherence and cohesion. So coherence and cohesion gives you marks for how well you organize your writing and how well you connect your ideas together. We'll see what the examiner sees. Again, we've got bands 6 to 9 here, and we're going to look at some of the key points in this. So it talks about sequencing information and ideas, or organizing information and ideas, arranging information and ideas. Well, sequence, organize, and arrange, they all have the same meaning, basically. And depending how well you do that, gives you a higher or lower mark for coherence and cohesion. So for number 8, it says that it's logically sequenced. So you organize your ideas in a good way. Lower down, it says it's coherent. So yeah, it makes sense to put it that way. If you have like one paragraph talking about 3 different ideas in the same paragraph, that's probably not very well organized. Or if in your essay you maybe write 7 paragraphs that's too many paragraphs and your information won't be organized logically. Another thing that it talks about is cohesion or cohesive devices, and using these to connect sentences, that kind of thing. So we're going to look at these in a moment, but they're basically linking words or ways of connecting sentences together. And depending how well you use them, so if we look at 7, it says there is some underuse or overuse. So if you don't use enough of these linking words or cohesive devices, or if you use too many of them, you're going to lose marks for coherence and cohesion. Then the next thing that it looks at is referencing as well, is important. So referencing means like using pronouns, words like this, these, that, to link back to previous ideas. We're going to look at this as well in a moment. And then paragraphing. As I mentioned, you want to have your paragraphs organized logically. Let's just summarize those key points. So we need to logically organize information. Use cohesive devices, linking words, and have a central or most important topic in each paragraph. That's very key. And then use referencing, which we'll see some examples of in a moment. So let's start with paragraphing. Well, generally, the writing task 2, you want 4 or 5 paragraphs. Any more than that is too many. 1 or 2 is not enough. 4 or 5 is a good amount. The first paragraph you'll want is an introduction, which introduces the topic. Then you want 2 or 3 body paragraphs. These contain your main ideas for the essay. And finally, you'll want a conclusion. This summarizes what you've been talking about in the essay. Thinking about cohesive devices, we're going to have a little bit of practice here. So there's different types of cohesive devices. And what I'd like you to do is look at the next question. I think it's question 3 below the video, and say which of those are cohesive devices for adding information, for giving more information. I'd like you to choose the correct options. Okay, so hopefully you chose the correct options would be in addition and moreover. So more cohesive devices for adding information. You could say and is adding information. In addition, that was one we just saw. Furthermore and moreover. There's also other ones you can add, but these 4 are very common. They're for adding extra information. Now look at the next one, the next question below the video, and choose the ones that show contrast. So ones for contrast would be words like but, however, despite this, and conversely. So in the question you just did, the correct answers were despite this and conversely. Now look at question 5 and choose the ones that show cause. So the ones that showed cause from that list would be because, and which is down to. Some others for cause you could use owing to, since, as, and due to. So these all show the cause of something. And finally, look at number 6 below the video and choose the ones that show result. So for result, you could have chose so and therefore would be the correct one there. Other ones for result, you can say thus, consequently, and as a result. They all work. So that's what we mean by cohesive devices. It's these linking words that we can use to connect our ideas in sentences. Now, it mentioned in the marking criteria referencing. And referencing are words like this, that, these, those, these people. So instead of repeating the same noun, for example, the number of teenagers suffering from self-esteem problems, you could just say these teenagers instead. Another way of referencing is to use pronouns. So it, he, she, they, instead of repeating nouns again. And the better you use these, the higher your marks for coherence and cohesion. Remember, if you have any questions, please go to the top of the screen and click on the chat icon to send us a message. Now it's time to take class 2 on this topic and then do the extra training and practice activities. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you again.